Welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive, original cheating wife stories. And now, let's get started with today's story. The setting sun painted golden streaks across the polished marble floors of the Sullivan Mansion's modernist living room. Lawrence Sullivan stood motionless, his tall frame reflected in the same mirror where his wife Patricia was adjusting her dress. The red fabric clung to her curves like a second skin, the neckline plunging well below what any respectable corporate wife would wear to a merger announcement. Lawrence observed her with the same analytical precision that had made him one of Silicon Valley's most formidable CEOs. At 45, he still cut an imposing figure in his tailored charcoal suit. Years of martial arts training and disciplined workout routines had kept him fit, while building Sullivan Technologies into a cybersecurity empire had honed his mind into a weapon sharper than any blade. "You know how important tonight is," he said, his deep voice carrying the quiet authority that had become his trademark. "The merger announcement requires a certain level of professionalism. That dress sends the wrong message." Patricia's fingers lingered on the fabric, smoothing it over her hips with deliberate slowness. "It's always about your image, isn't it, Lawrence?" She reached for her lipstick, applying another layer of crimson. "God forbid, I want to feel beautiful for once. Not everything revolves around Sullivan Technologies." The words hung in the air like poison gas, triggering something in Lawrence's mind. As CEO of the world's leading cybersecurity firm, he'd built his career on detecting patterns. The smallest anomaly could indicate a system breach. Lately, the anomalies in his personal life had been accumulating. Unexplained absences that stretched beyond their stated duration. Phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered a room. Personal training sessions that always seemed to run late. Credit card charges from hotels in the city where they lived. New jewelry she claimed to have had for years. Instead of responding to her barb, Lawrence checked his phone. A message from Chris Berger, his head of security, confirmed what he needed to know. His private team was in position. He'd hired Chris 8 years ago, recognizing in the former Special Forces operator the same ruthless efficiency he valued in himself. Where Lawrence was subtle steel, Chris was raw iron. Effective, unyielding, and absolutely loyal. "I need to handle some things at the office before the gala," Lawrence said, adjusting his platinum cufflinks, a 5th anniversary gift from Patricia that now felt like a marker of mockery. "I'll meet you there." Patricia barely acknowledged him, too busy with her preparation. Her indifference was new, or perhaps he was only now allowing himself to see it. As he left the room, he activated a secure line to Chris. "Begin Protocol 7, he ordered. "Full surveillance, no limitations. I want eyes and ears on everything." "Sir," Chris's voice held a note of concern. "That level of monitoring, it's unprecedented. The resources required." "Do it. You have complete authorization." "And Chris, this stays between us." Lawrence descended the curved staircase of his home, past the family portraits that now seemed like elaborate props in a stage play. He'd built this life on a foundation of integrity and family values. Sullivan Technologies wasn't just another tech company. It was a legacy he'd intended to pass down to his children. Now, watching his wife prepare for what she thought was a simple corporate gala, he felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. His Tesla waited in the circular driveway, its black surface reflecting the sunset like obsidian. As he slid behind the wheel, another message from Chris lit up his secure phone, initial surveillance active. "You need to see this." The Sullivan Technologies corporate headquarters dominated the San Francisco skyline, its glass and steel structure a testament to Lawrence's vision. But tonight, he bypassed the executive floor for a secure room 3 levels below ground. Here, surrounded by monitors displaying multiple camera feeds, Lawrence watched his wife's calculated performance at the gala. Patricia had made her entrance 20 minutes ago, the red dress drawing exactly the kind of attention she'd intended. She'd immediately gravitated toward Herman Black, Lawrence's supposed best friend and COO. Through high-resolution cameras and directional microphones, Lawrence observed their interaction with growing coldness. "Come here often, stranger?" Patricia's voice came through crisp and clear as she sidled up to Herman at the bar. Her hand brushed his arm in a gesture too familiar for comfort. Herman's fingers traced her waist, hidden from the crowd by the bar's position. "You're playing a dangerous game tonight, Pat. That dress." "Lawrence still suspects nothing," she whispered, leaning close enough that her lips nearly brushed Herman's ear. "The shell companies are in place. Once the merger goes through next week, everything changes. The accounts are ready." Herman's voice held equal measures of lust and greed. "Everything's prepared. Sandy confirmed the last transfers yesterday. It's perfect. Lawrence is so busy protecting the company from external threats, he never thought to look inside his own home." Lawrence's fingers tightened on his desk as Chris entered with a tablet. The former operator's face was grim. "Sir, our team has uncovered something bigger than an affair. You need to see this." The evidence unfolded across multiple screens, each revelation more damaging than the last. The merger with Jared Norton's tech firm wasn't an expansion opportunity. It was an elaborate trap designed to hollow out Sullivan Technologies from the inside. Patricia wasn't just sleeping with Herman. She was the central figure in a conspiracy that included Norton, Herman, and even Lawrence's own brother, Guillermo. "There's more," Chris said, pulling up another set of files. "Your daughter's recent behavioral issues? The declining grades, the rebellion, the sudden hostility toward you? We've found evidence that Mrs. Sullivan has been deliberately sabotaging your relationship with both children." Surveillance footage played across the screens. Patricia in careful conversation with Mandy's teachers, planting seeds of doubt about Lawrence's commitment to his family. Text messages showed her manipulating situations, staging incidents designed to drive wedges between father and children. She'd even gone as far as intercepting and altering messages between Lawrence and his son Bill at college. "Show me everything," Lawrence commanded, his voice carrying the kind of deadly calm that preceded hurricanes. "Every detail, every player, every angle." For the next hour, they pieced together a conspiracy that stretched back years. Patricia hadn't just betrayed their marriage. She'd orchestrated a complete infiltration of his life. The cameras continued to show the gala, where she laughed and danced, celebrating what she thought was her imminent victory. The night stretched into early morning as Lawrence dove deeper into encrypted servers and hidden accounts. Each discovery was another betrayal crystallized in data, another crack in the foundation of trust he'd built his life upon. His brother Guillermo had been running ghost projects through the R&D department, siphoning millions through fake research initiatives. The money trail led to offshore accounts, carefully hidden but not invisible to someone with Lawrence's resources. Herman's betrayal went beyond the affair. He'd been selling company secrets to competitors, using the profits to fund a lavish lifestyle that included regular trips with Patricia to private villas in the Mediterranean. Their affair hadn't been a recent development. Bank records showed shared accounts dating back 3 years. Patricia's role was perhaps the most insidious. She'd methodically gathered compromising information on board members, building a blackmail portfolio that would have given her control of the company after Lawrence's planned ouster. She'd used her position as his wife to access information, to build relationships, to plant seeds of doubt about his leadership. But Sandy, his sister-in-law, had been the biggest surprise. She'd constructed an entire shadow company built on stolen Sullivan Technologies patents, preparing to launch competing products the moment Lawrence was removed from power. "Sir," Chris said, returning with another set of files. "We confirmed the timing. The dress tonight, it wasn't just inappropriate. They're celebrating. The merger announcement was supposed to be the beginning of your end. They think they've won." Lawrence stood, walking to the window that overlooked the sleeping city. In the reflection, he could see the monitors behind him, Patricia and Herman sharing another intimate moment, his brother glad-handing investors, Sandy watching it all with satisfied eyes. "Activate Protocol Zero," he said, his voice carrying absolute finality. Chris didn't bother hiding his concern. "Sir, Protocol Zero. The collateral damage will be extensive. Personal reputations, careers, families. They chose their fate when they targeted my children." Lawrence turned, his face illuminated by the city lights and the glow of monitors. "They didn't just try to steal my company. They tried to steal my legacy. Execute Protocol Zero. Now, through the cameras, he could still see Patricia laughing with Herman, their hands touching under tables, their confidence complete. They had no idea that Lawrence Sullivan didn't just plan for cyber attacks. He planned for everything. The first phase of Protocol Zero began at midnight. A cascade of encrypted locks on company data, phantom account transfers, and the quiet activation of hidden contract clauses that would trap millions in legal limbo. By the time Patricia danced with Herman to what they thought was their victory song, Lawrence had already seized control of every shell company they created. His most trusted assistant, Brooke, worked silently in an adjacent office, gathering evidence and securing his children's futures. Mandy, away at a friend's house, had already been contacted and protected. Bill's college accounts were transferred to secure trusts beyond Patricia's reach. Lawrence watched the final pieces fall into place, remembering Patricia's words from earlier. Maybe I want to feel beautiful for once. She'd never looked uglier to him than she did now, draped over Herman, plotting his destruction. The red dress that had been meant to mark her triumph would instead become the symbol of her downfall. Dawn approached as Lawrence made his final preparations. While Patricia celebrated her imagined victory, divorce papers were being delivered to their home, along with evidence of her crimes carefully distributed to select board members. Lawrence Sullivan, the man she thought she deceived, would be gone. But Lawrence Sullivan, the man who'd built an empire on seeing the patterns others missed, would be very much alive and very, very angry. The night of the gala wouldn't be remembered as the beginning of Lawrence Sullivan's downfall. Instead, it would mark the start of the most meticulously planned revenge in Silicon Valley history. The gala's music pulsed through the grand ballroom of the St. Regis as Lawrence's plan unfolded with mechanical precision. In the building's secure server room, his team of cybersecurity experts executed complex protocols that would seal the conspirators' fate. Lines of code scrolled across screens as company data underwent military-grade encryption, while carefully crafted algorithms began transferring millions into phantom accounts. Through the surveillance feeds, Lawrence watched Patricia twirl in Herman's arms, her red dress a splash of blood against the white marble floor. Neither of them noticed when their phones briefly lost signal, the moment when their access to the shell company's accounts was permanently severed. "Sir, Phase 1 is complete," reported his lead IT specialist. "All offshore accounts have been redirected. The phantom protocols are active." Lawrence nodded, his face illuminated by the blue glow of monitors. "Trigger the contract clauses." Brooke, his executive assistant of 8 years, worked methodically at her station. She'd been gathering evidence for months, having noticed discrepancies in board meeting minutes and irregular patterns in company communications. Now, she was ensuring every piece of documentation was properly secured and backed up on servers that only Lawrence could access. "Mr. Sullivan," Brooke said, looking up from her screen, "Mandy is secure. The security team confirmed she's chosen to leave with you. She's quite angry about what her mother did." A brief flash of emotion crossed Lawrence's face, the only one he'd shown all night. His daughter had inherited his analytical mind. Once presented with evidence of Patricia's manipulation, the altered text messages, the staged conflicts, the deliberate sabotage of father-daughter events, she'd made her choice with cold clarity. And Bill? The trust is established and funded. His college accounts are secured. He's protected, sir, though he doesn't know everything yet. We thought it best to wait until after his finals. Lawrence turned to Chris, who stood by the door. "Begin Phase 2. While Patricia danced and laughed, believing she was celebrating her impending triumph, Lawrence's team executed a series of precisely timed operations. All company data was locked behind new encryption protocols. Millions in assets were legally transferred through predetermined channels. Hidden contract clauses were activated, giving Lawrence control of the shell companies. Emergency board protocols were initiated, temporarily concentrating power in the CEO position. Surveillance data was secured and backed up to multiple secure locations. By midnight, as Patricia sipped champagne with her co-conspirators, Lawrence had effectively seized control of every asset they thought they'd stolen. The irony of their celebration wasn't lost on him. They were toasting their own destruction. "The divorce papers are being delivered now," Brooke confirmed. along with selected evidence packages to specific board members. Lawrence stood straightening his tie. Distribute the remaining files as planned. It's time. Before dawn broke over San Francisco, Lawrence Sullivan, the man they thought they'd outsmarted, vanished completely. His disappearance was as meticulous as everything else he did. No trace, no trail, no loose ends. Patricia's homecoming would be her first taste of the new reality. She'd find all accounts emptied or frozen. Divorce papers detailing her infidelity and conspiracy. Evidence of her crimes in the hands of key board members. Her access to company resources completely revoked. Her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. The first cracks appeared at dawn. Herman Black stood in his private office, staring at his computer screen in disbelief. Every offshore account empty. Years of carefully hidden funds gone. His phone buzzed constantly with alerts. Access denied. Transfer failed, account suspended. What the hell is happening? He barked into his phone, all pretense of smooth sophistication gone. Fix this. But there was nothing to fix. The money hadn't been stolen. It had been legally reclaimed through a web of contracts and clauses so complex that his lawyers were already getting headaches. Across town, Guillermo Sullivan watched federal auditors march into his department. They carried boxes of documents, detailed records of every ghost project, every fraudulent transaction, every fake research initiative he'd used to embezzle millions. His attempt to call his sister-in-law Sandy went straight to voicemail. Sandy had problems of her own. Her parallel company, built on stolen Sullivan Technologies patents, faced not just litigation, but complete annihilation. Emergency injunctions had frozen her assets. Cease and desist orders arrived by the dozen. Her technical team reported that critical data was simply gone. But it was Jared Norton who broke first. The veteran tech executive recognized a lost cause when he saw one. He reached out to federal investigators with an offer, evidence of Patricia's involvement in industrial espionage in exchange for immunity. His betrayal was quick, complete, and self-serving, exactly what Lawrence had predicted. Patricia's fall was particularly spectacular. Her society friends, who'd once competed for her attention, now wouldn't return her calls. Claudia Martinez, Lawrence's corporate counsel and a pillar of San Francisco society, led the social exodus. The same people who'd admired Patricia's red dress at the gala now whispered about her disgrace at charity functions. "I don't know what you're talking about," Herman declared publicly when asked about their relationship. Mrs. Sullivan was simply another board member's wife. "These accusations are ridiculous." He'd thrown her under the bus, so fast it left skid marks. Watching him deny their relationship on live television, Patricia finally understood. She'd been played for a fool, not by Lawrence, but by her own co-conspirators. Time became Lawrence's greatest weapon. While his enemies expected immediate destruction, he delivered something far more devastating. Slow, systematic dismantling of their lives. Like a master chess player, he'd set up moves that would play out over years. Guillermo's downfall came first. Over 18 months, Lawrence's algorithms orchestrated what appeared to be a series of unfortunate market crashes. Each one targeted his brother's remaining investments with surgical precision. By the end of year 2, Guillermo Sullivan, once a millionaire executive, was selling his house to cover basic expenses. "It's just bad luck," Guillermo told his wife, staring at another margin call notice. "The market's volatile." But it wasn't luck. It was Lawrence, operating through layers of shells and proxies, using his brother's own greed against him. Every time Guillermo thought he'd found a safe investment, invisible hands would shift the market just enough to destroy him. Sandy's destruction took longer, but proved more complete. Her company weathered the first wave of patent lawsuits, but then strange things began happening. Critical servers failed at crucial moments. Potential clients received anonymous tips about security vulnerabilities. Mysterious cyber attacks exposed just enough of her stolen technology to scare away investors. "There's nothing linking these incidents," her security team reported. "It's like we're cursed." 3 years in, Sandy's company collapsed under the weight of litigation and technical failures. The industry blacklist followed naturally. No one would hire an executive with her record of incompetence. Herman's reputation died by 1,000 cuts. Evidence of his affairs, not just with Patricia, but with numerous others, leaked to the press in a steady drip. Each revelation was more damaging than the last. His attempts to deny them only made him look worse, especially when time-stamped videos proved his lies. "I assure you, these allegations are completely false," he'd say, only to have photos appear the next day showing exactly what he denied. Patricia's attempts to access Lawrence's fortune met with constant failure. Every legal challenge was met with overwhelming evidence of her crimes. Her lawyers kept quitting as new conflicts of interest mysteriously emerged. Her attempts to sell stories to the press backfired when journalists received proof of her lies. But while his enemies floundered, Lawrence rebuilt. Operating under various aliases and through multiple corporations, he constructed a new empire. His children thrived under his guidance. Mandy discovered her talent for cybersecurity, eventually becoming one of the field's rising stars. Bill excelled in corporate law, his understanding of business enhanced by watching his father's strategic brilliance. Both children understood the truth. Their father hadn't run away. He'd removed them from a toxic environment. Lawrence maintained perfect operational security through it all. Not once in 6 years did his enemies discover his location or new identity. He watched them through surveillance networks, monitored their desperate attempts to recover, and methodically closed every door they tried to open. His new corporation grew quietly but steadily, absorbing vulnerable assets from his former enemies' failed ventures. Each acquisition was legal, logical, and completely untraceable to him. He wasn't just destroying their present. He was using their resources to build his future. The conspirators never realized they were watching their own assets being used against them. They were too busy surviving. Guillermo took increasingly desperate consulting jobs. Sandy moved to progressively smaller apartments. Herman found his reputation so toxic that even startups wouldn't touch him. Patricia's attempts to leverage her former social status met with embarrassing failures. Through it all, Lawrence worked with mechanical precision. Each move was calculated, each consequence measured. He didn't act from emotion, revenge, serve cold, required patience and planning. He was building something greater than destruction, a legacy that would prove betrayal never pays. For 6 years, he was a ghost in the machine, an invisible hand of justice. His enemies looked over their shoulders, jumped at shadows, and slowly went mad trying to figure out why everything they touched turned to ash. But Lawrence knew something they didn't. This was just the prelude. The real endgame was still to come. The security cameras caught Patricia's arrival at 9:47 a.m. 6 years had not been kind to her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by off-the-rack wear that tried too hard to look expensive. Her once perfect hair showed streaks of gray, and her makeup couldn't quite hide the lines of bitterness etched into her face. She clutched the hand of a small boy, 5 years old, dark-haired, with Herman's distinctive nose. The child looked around with nervous curiosity as Patricia approached the front desk of the towering glass building that housed Nova Technologies, Lawrence's new empire built from the ashes of his enemies' ambitions. "I need to see Lawrence Sullivan," Patricia announced, her voice carrying the same entitled tone she'd used at the gala 6 years ago. "Tell him his wife is here." The receptionist, already briefed for this moment, replied with practiced neutrality. "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no Lawrence Sullivan here." "Ex-wife," Patricia corrected, fumbling in her purse. "And I know he's here. This building, this company, it's all his. The boy, he needs to meet his father." Security cameras tracked their movement through the lobby. In his office 60 floors above, Lawrence watched the scene unfold on his monitors. DNA test results were already open on his tablet, tests he'd arranged months ago through his surveillance network. The boy's genetic profile was displayed next to Herman's, a 99.9% match. "She's getting desperate," Chris observed from his position by the door. "Trying to claim paternity after 6 years?" Lawrence's lips curved slightly. "Herman knows about the boy. He abandoned them both 3 years ago. My sources confirmed he's been dodging child support through shell companies. The trust you set up for the kid has been covering their basic needs," Chris added, "though Patricia's been neglecting him despite the support. We have documentation of missed doctor's appointments, unexplained absences from school? Lawrence nodded. Everything was proceeding exactly as he'd predicted. Patricia's attempt to leverage a non-existent paternity claim would become yet another weapon in his arsenal. "Sir," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Black is becoming insistent." Lawrence pressed a button, and security footage showed Patricia growing increasingly agitated in the lobby. "You tell Lawrence that Thomas is his son," she demanded, her voice rising. "We were together that last night before he disappeared. He has responsibilities." The boy, Thomas, shrank away from his mother's outburst, displaying a practiced familiarity with her episodes. Lawrence's surveillance had documented dozens of similar scenes. Patricia's public meltdowns, her neglect of the child, her attempts to use him as leverage against both Herman and Lawrence. "Show them up," Lawrence commanded. "It's time to end this particular charade." 10 minutes later, Patricia burst into his office, dragging Thomas behind her. She froze at the sight of Lawrence behind his desk, looking barely a day older than when he'd vanished. Success had preserved him, while failure had ravaged her. "You've been here all along," she whispered. "Right under our noses." "Sit down, Patricia," Lawrence said calmly. "We need to discuss Thomas's future. Specifically, why you've been neglecting the child support payments Herman's sister Ronnie sends for him." Patricia's face went white. "How did you?" "I've been watching. I've watched you waste the support money on failed get-rich-quick schemes. I've documented every missed parent-teacher conference, every skipped medical checkup, every time you left him alone while you chased dead-end leads trying to find my fortune." He turned his tablet around, showing her the DNA results. "Thomas isn't mine, Patricia, but unlike his actual father, I've been ensuring he has food, shelter, and education through the trust one established. The same trust you've been misappropriating. You can't prove." "I can prove everything." Lawrence pressed a button, and screens around the office lit up with surveillance footage, financial records, and medical reports. "The question is, what happens next?" Thomas, forgotten by his mother in her shock, had gravitated toward a corner of the office where a familiar red dress hung in a frame. He stared at it with innocent curiosity while his mother's last desperate gambit crumbled around him. 1 week later, 5 separate town cars arrived at Nova Technologies headquarters. Each carried a passenger who'd received an invitation they couldn't refuse. Herman Black emerged first, his designer's suit a cheap knockoff of his former wardrobe. Bankruptcy had left him desperate enough to walk into what he suspected was a trap. Guillermo Sullivan followed, wearing the uniform of the security company where he now worked as a middle manager. 6 years of orchestrated financial disasters had stripped him of everything except his bitter resentment. Sandy stepped out next, clutching a briefcase containing legal papers about her pending criminal charges. Her once confident stride had been replaced by nervous glances over her shoulder. Jared Norton arrived fourth, his immunity deal crumbling under the weight of new evidence. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by the haunted look of a man watching his carefully constructed lies unravel. Patricia entered last, still reeling from her failed paternity gambit. She'd received custody papers that morning. Herman's sister Ronnie was suing for custody of Thomas, backed by extensive evidence of neglect. The lobby directory listed their destination as Conference Room A, special board meeting. None of them noticed that each guard, each receptionist, each person they passed had been specifically chosen for this day. Lawrence watched their approach on his monitors. Beside him stood his inner circle, each prepared for their role. Mandy, now 24, had grown into a formidable cybersecurity expert. Her tablets displayed years of surveillance data on her mother's activities. Bill, fresh from law school, carried files documenting every aspect of Guillermo's crimes. His uncle's betrayal had shaped his understanding of corporate law. Brooke, promoted to COO, held evidence of Sandy's corporate espionage. Every stolen patent, every secret deal, every hidden transaction. Chris maintained his position by the door, ready to present proof of Herman's multiple betrayals. Claudia Martinez, corporate counsel extraordinaire, stood ready with documentation of their collective conspiracy. The conspirators entered the conference room separately, each trying to avoid eye contact with the others. The room's design was deliberate, a long table with high-back chairs facing a massive screen, currently dark. "Please be seated," a familiar voice commanded from hidden speakers. The screen lit up, showing Lawrence in his office. But before anyone could react, the conference room's doors opened. Lawrence walked in, the real Lawrence. The screen had been a misdirection, a final reminder of how easily they'd been manipulated. 6 years, he said, taking his place at the head of the table. 6 years of watching you destroy yourselves with your own greed and stupidity. You bastard. Herman started to rise, but Chris's hand on his shoulder forced him back down. Interesting choice of words, Herman, Lawrence replied. Especially given how you abandoned your own son. Patricia flinched. Guillermo's security guard uniform suddenly felt too tight. Sandy's fingers trembled on her briefcase. Today isn't about revenge, Lawrence continued. It's about justice, about consequences, about truth. He nodded to his team. Mandy stepped forward first, her tablet projecting onto the screen. Mother, would you like to explain these recordings? The ones showing how you deliberately sabotaged my relationship with Dad. Patricia's face drained of color as her own voice filled the room. Carefully orchestrating conflicts, manipulating events, poisoning her children against their father. Bill followed with his presentation. Uncle Guillermo, the federal authorities are very interested in these transaction records. But they're especially interested in what you did with the money. One by one, they presented their evidence. Brooke exposed Sandy's corporate espionage, including emails proving she'd stolen patents before they were even filed. Chris detailed Herman's betrayals, complete with surveillance footage of meetings with competitors. Claudia presented proof of their collective conspiracy, revealing how each person's actions connected to create a complete picture of betrayal. But it was Lawrence's final revelation that shattered their last hopes. Your immunity deal, Jared, he said, turning to Norton. Did you really think I wouldn't find the evidence you held back? The real records of your involvement? Norton's face went ashen. His immunity deal had been based on full disclosure. The evidence Lawrence now displayed proved he'd lied to federal investigators. The justice Lawrence had orchestrated fell like dominoes, each piece triggering the next with mechanical precision. Herman was the first to break. When faced with Chris's evidence of his corporate fraud, not just the affair with Patricia, but years of selling company secrets, his facade crumbled. I want to make a deal, he blurted out, earning disgusted looks from his co-conspirators. The time for deals is over, Lawrence replied. Federal agents are already processing your involvement in industrial espionage. The evidence has been verified by 3 independent sources. Guillermo tried a different approach. Brother, please. You lost the right to call me brother when you chose to steal from your own family. Lawrence cut him off. However, the DA is willing to discuss a plea deal in exchange for your complete testimony. Guillermo's shoulders slumped. The security guard uniform he wore suddenly felt like a preview of his future prison attire. Within an hour, he'd signed a full confession detailing every ghost project, every stolen dollar. Sandy's collapse was more spectacular. As Brooke methodically presented evidence of her corporate espionage, her industry contacts were simultaneously receiving detailed documentation of her crimes. By sunset, she'd be blacklisted from every major tech company in the country. You can't do this, she whispered, but her protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. I already have, Lawrence replied. Your new company's assets are being seized as we speak. The patents you stole are being returned to their rightful owner. Jared Norton's immunity deal crumbled under the weight of newly revealed evidence. His attempted betrayal of his co-conspirators had backfired spectacularly. Lawrence had known about his hidden records all along, waiting for the perfect moment to expose them. The federal prosecutors are particularly interested in the evidence you conveniently forgot to mention, Lawrence informed him. Immunity deals require full disclosure, Jared. You should have read the fine print. But it was Patricia's fate that proved most fitting. As the others faced their legal consequences, she watched her last claims to Lawrence's fortune evaporate. Every attempt she'd made to access his wealth over the past 6 years was exposed as the desperate grasping it had been. The boy, she tried one last time. Thomas needs stability, Lawrence interrupted. Which is why I'm supporting Ronnie's custody petition. Herman's sister has proven to be the only adult in his life who truly cares for his welfare. The resolution moved with swift efficiency. Herman was led away by federal agents, his corporate fraud charges carrying a minimum 10-year sentence. Guillermo signed his plea deal, accepting a lesser sentence in exchange for his testimony. Sandy watched helplessly as her industry contacts abandoned her, her reputation destroyed beyond repair. Jared's immunity deal was officially revoked, multiple indictments following within hours. Patricia lost her final appeal for Lawrence's assets, her claims dismissed with prejudice. But Lawrence wasn't finished. As his enemies faced their fates, he turned his attention to the innocent caught in their web. Thomas, Herman's abandoned son, was placed in Ronnie's custody. Lawrence ensured the boy would have everything he needed: education, support, and most importantly, stability. The trust he'd established would guarantee Thomas never suffered for his parents' sins. "Your actions forced me to destroy your world," Lawrence told the assembled conspirators. "But unlike you, I protect the innocent. Thomas will have every opportunity you tried to steal from my own children." As security led them away, Lawrence stood at his office window, watching the sun set over his rebuilt empire. Behind him hung the red dress that had started it all, no longer a symbol of betrayal, but a reminder of justice served. 1 year later, Lawrence sat in that same office, surveying what his revenge had built. The company had grown stronger than ever. Mandy headed the cybersecurity division, her insight shaped by watching her father's strategic brilliance. Bill ran the legal department, his understanding of corporate law deepened by documenting his uncle's crimes. Brooke served as COO, her loyalty rewarded with the position she'd earned. Chris directed global security operations, his protectiveness extending to the entire Sullivan empire. Claudia's position as chief corporate counsel was untouchable, her handling of the conspirators' downfall legendary in legal circles. Meanwhile, the conspirators lived with their consequences. Herman served his time in federal prison, his corporate fraud conviction ensuring he'd never work in business again. His attempts to appeal fell flat, each rejection citing the overwhelming evidence against him. Guillermo worked night shifts as a security guard, his plea deal leaving him just enough freedom to survive, but not enough to thrive. His former wealth and status existed only in his bitter memories. Sandy lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, blacklisted from the corporate world she'd once navigated so confidently. Her attempts to rebuild her reputation met with closed doors and turnbacks. Jared faced multiple indictments, his legal troubles mounting as more evidence of his deception came to light. His immunity deal's collapse had triggered a domino effect of legal consequences. Patricia, her society status destroyed, worked as a retail clerk in a mall department store. Her former friends crossed the street to avoid her. Her attempts to rebuild her social standing failed repeatedly, her name now synonymous with betrayal in San Francisco society. The red dress hung in Lawrence's office, framed behind bulletproof glass, a reminder that justice, properly served, required not just vengeance, but wisdom. His new wife, Amanda Troy, who had helped expose the conspiracy's financial threads, understood its significance. Their blended family, including Thomas, whom Lawrence mentored from a careful distance, represented his true victory. Revenge, Lawrence had learned, wasn't just about punishment. It was about protecting the innocent and ensuring karma found its true targets. As he watched his family and loyal friends celebrating the company's anniversary, he understood that the best revenge wasn't just destroying his enemies. It was building something stronger from the ashes of their betrayal. The power of patient, calculated response to betrayal had proven absolute. Every character's fate felt earned, every resolution complete, every loyalty rewarded. Justice, served cold but served completely, had prevailed. Epilogue. Patricia Black, formerly Sullivan, stared at her reflection in the employee bathroom mirror of Carson's department store. At 52, the careful maintenance of her appearance had become an obsession, a desperate attempt to cling to her former glory. The employee discount barely covered her basic cosmetics, and her monthly paycheck as a sales clerk couldn't sustain even a fraction of her former lifestyle. Her studio apartment, a far cry from the Sullivan Mansion, sat above a Chinese restaurant in a forgotten corner of San Francisco. The constant smell of cooking oil served as a daily reminder of her fall. Her wedding rings, both from Lawrence and her brief, disastrous marriage to Herman, had been sold years ago to cover legal fees. Every attempt to rebuild her social standing had failed spectacularly. 3 charity organizations had publicly rejected her volunteer applications. Former friends blocked her calls and social media accounts. Country clubs cited membership restrictions when she attempted to join. Even her mother's bridge club had quietly asked her not to attend their annual fundraiser. Her relationship with Thomas, now 11, existed solely through court-mandated supervised visits twice a month. Ronnie, Herman's sister, had won full custody 5 years ago, backed by Lawrence's meticulous documentation of Patricia's neglect. The trust Lawrence had established ensured Thomas attended the best schools and had every opportunities Patricia could no longer pretend to provide. Herman Black's fate proved equally fitting. Federal prison camp Montgomery had stripped away his arrogance along with his freedom. His 7-year sentence, reduced from 10 for cooperation, offered ample time to reflect on his choices. His cellmate, ironically, was a former hedge fund manager who'd lost everything to one of Lawrence's market corrections. The consequences of their betrayal continued to unfold. Patricia's attempts to write a tell-all book were shut down by ironclad NDAs. Herman's appeals were rejected with increasing finality. Their joint assets had been seized and liquidated. Their reputations were so thoroughly destroyed that even their failures made no news. Lawrence's new headquarters dominated the San Francisco skyline, a testament to patient revenge and calculated reconstruction. The Nova Technologies logo gleamed against the morning sun, while inside, the fruits of loyalty flourished. Mandy Sullivan, now strategic director of cybersecurity, had transformed her father's security protocols into an industry standard. Her department's innovations, born from watching Lawrence's methodical dismantling of his enemies, regularly set new benchmarks in digital protection. At 29, industry publications already called her the next generation of security evolution. Bill Sullivan's legal department had become legendary for its precision. His understanding of corporate law, shaped by documenting his uncle's downfall, made him uniquely qualified to protect the company's interests. His recent marriage to the daughter of a Supreme Court justice had added another layer of influence to the Sullivan legacy. Brooke's promotion to COO proved Lawrence's eye for talent. Her management style, learned from years of watching him operate, combined efficiency with strategic insight. The board's unanimous support of her leadership reflected the company's strongest quarter in history. Chris expanded global security into an independent subsidiary, providing specialized services to select clients. His loyalty to Lawrence had been rewarded with partial ownership of the new venture, though he still personally oversaw the Sullivan family's security. Claudia Martinez's position as chief corporate counsel came with a corner office and a view of the Bay. Her handling of the conspirators' downfall had become a case study at leading law schools, though the full details remained sealed. Lawrence's marriage to Amanda Troy brought more than personal happiness. It united 2 powerful families with complementary strengths. Her financial expertise had helped trace the conspiracy's money trails, and her understanding of loss, having lost her first husband to the conspirators' machinations, gave her unique insight into Lawrence's motivations. Their blended family thrived. Amanda's teenage daughters excelled under Mandy's mentorship. Thomas, though not officially part of the family, received carefully structured guidance. The Sullivan name once again represented integrity and innovation. Their regular family dinners became a symbol of victory over betrayal. The company's success exceeded even Lawrence's calculations. Nova Technologies absorbed key markets from competitors, strategic acquisitions strengthened their global position, innovation patents secured their technological lead, stock values tripled under the new leadership. Lawrence maintained discreet surveillance on his former enemies, not from fear or obsession, but as a matter of principle. Their continuing struggles served as data points in his understanding of justice. Patricia's attempts at redemption, failed interviews for better positions, rejected applications for loans, unsuccessful efforts to contact Thomas outside approved visits, declined submissions to society magazines about her side. Herman's prison existence, declined requests for parole, failed attempts to publish business insights, rejected appeals for sentence reduction, growing isolation as former contacts abandoned him. The red dress, still framed in Lawrence's office, had acquired almost mythical status among employees. New hires learned quickly not to ask about it directly, but its story, carefully curated versions of it, circulated as a warning about betrayal and a testament to loyalty. Lawrence's revenge hadn't just destroyed his enemies. It had built something greater, a corporate culture that valued loyalty above all, a family strengthened by overcoming betrayal, a legacy secured for generations, a reputation for patient, absolute justice. Thomas, unaware of his full connection to events, was thriving under Ronnie's care. The trust Lawrence established ensured he would have every opportunity to build his own legacy, untainted by his parents' choices. In the end, Lawrence's patient vengeance had transformed betrayal into foundation stones for a stronger future. The conspirator's fate served as a perpetual reminder. Karma comes not as swift lightning, but as the inevitable tide, rising slowly but absolutely, drowning those who mistake patience for weakness. The Sullivan name endured stronger than ever, while those who had tried to destroy it lived on as cautionary tales, their falls as complete as their betrayal had been profound. Lawrence kept only one photo from his previous marriage, not for sentiment but for perspective. It showed Patricia in the red dress at the gala, celebrating what she thought was her triumph. Beside it, quarterly reports showed Nova Technologies' continuing dominance. Each success another stone in the edifice built from his enemy's destruction. Perfect revenge, Lawrence had learned, wasn't just about destroying enemies. It was about using their destruction to build something they could never taint, never touch, and never comprehend. A legacy of justice served cold, complete, and without regret.